I love Halloween. It's my favorite time of year, and my favorite thing to do this time of year is to get into the spirit by watching some great movies suited for the season. And I love them all. Scary, funny, R-rated, and G-rated. And I found that most other lists of similar purpose are very narrow, only going after that one type of Halloween movie. So I put together a list that hopefully has something for everyone. Whether you like funny or scary or are looking for something that the whole family can enjoy, these are my picks for the best movies to watch this Halloween. To get things started, let's take a look at some movies that are for the whole family. Everyone has seen The Nightmare Before Christmas, but few seem to mention another great movie by the same director, Henry Selick, and that is Coraline. It follows a girl living in mundanity and boredom in her dull home with parents who are too preoccupied with work to spend much time with their daughter, until she stumbles upon a doorway to an alternate world that is full of color and life, with new parents and a new home, but all may not be what it seems. This one might be a little too scary for the really young ones, but it does stand with a PG rating and should be suitable for children of most ages, and it's one I think most adults can even enjoy, though the same could be said for the rest of the movies on this list. Another great family movie that uses claymation to create its world is Paranorman. It's the story of Norman, a boy who can see and speak to ghosts who has to save his whole town with the help of a few friends from a centuries-old curse brought on by a witch. This one's much lighter fare than Coraline, with a lot more humor sprinkled throughout. It has a great message about individuality and acceptance. It has that great Halloween atmosphere I wish more movies did. If those two seem up your alley, I would also recommend checking out Monster House, a computer-animated film about a group of young teens who discover that a creepy old house in their neighborhood is more than just a house, but is actually a living, breathing monster that eats anyone who comes too close. The animation is gorgeous, from the same studio that blew everyone away with the Polar Express. It's a lot of fun throughout with some great humor for the older crowd like any good kids movie should. The last two I'd like to mention are both live action. The first one is Casper, which is a movie about a paranormal investigator and his daughter who stay in a house inhabited by ghosts, one friendly and the rest not so much. It's the mid-90s, so the special effects leave a lot to be desired, and there's a campiness to it that you can expect from a movie marketed to kids in that time frame. But it's a fun ride with a great cast and a great atmosphere that's perfectly suited for the time of year. And last but not least, Hocus Pocus. This one's become a bit of a cult classic with my generation, so you may have already seen it, but if you want to be laughing and grinning like an idiot for an hour and a half this Halloween, look no further. Three witches risen from the grave to wreak havoc on a small suburban town must be stopped by a teen boy, the girl he has a crush on, his younger sister, and a talking cat. It never takes itself too seriously and is all the better for it. Of course, some of us are a little older and want something with a little higher than a PG rating, but maybe aren't looking to have nightmares for a week. So I'd like to mention a few films who poke fun at the horror genre while still inhabiting it and are certainly not meant for kids. We'll get the obvious out of the way with Shaun of the Dead, a horror comedy about two lackadaisical Brits who find themselves in a zombie apocalypse. If you haven't already seen it, you're doing yourself a great disservice and need to just watch it already. Absolutely hilarious with a lot of great nods to Romero, the man who started it all. Though, any of the Cornetto trilogy would be a great pick this year, so if you've seen Shaun of the Dead but not Hot Fuzz or The World's End, you should rectify that immediately. There's also Cabin in the Woods, which is about a group of teens who discover a dark secret at, you guessed it, a cabin in the woods. It's a great homage to the works of people like Sam Raimi and has a lot of fun with its unique concept that I won't give away. What starts as your typical terrible horror movie becomes something much, much more and better than that as the movie rolls forward, and plays a lot with the tropes of the genre. Another film along those same lines is Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. It's about two hillbillies who are staying at their cabin who unwittingly find themselves the victims of torment and terror by a group of college kids who have mistaken them for psycho killers. It's a great what-if kind of story that lives up to its potential at almost every turn. So these are all pretty straightforward horror comedies, but there are films that are more subtle with their humor, and I think the Scream franchise is arguably the best at this. Marketed and perceived by most as legitimate horror movies, it has a lot of fun playing with expectations and commentating on the state of modern horror. It is quite graphic and for some quite scary, but it's a movie that knows it's ridiculous and at parts outright silly, but becomes an incredibly enjoyable film series throughout because of this, the only one missing the mark being Scream 3, which you can just skip because it's nowhere near as good as the others. But Scream 4 was a return to glory for Wes Craven and shouldn't be missed by any fans of the original. But now it's time for the movies that might keep you up at night. They may not necessarily be associated with Halloween directly, but are perfect for anyone looking for a good scare. I'm not going to waste your time with the movies everyone talks about. Movies like The Exorcist, Alien, The Shining are all great films and deserve the attention they get, but here are some lesser known movies to watch this season. The Babadook is a story about a single mother and her son who are living in the wake of the father's death. One night during his routine bedtime story, the boy chooses a book called The Babadook. After reading it, strange things begin to happen to the both of them, in and outside of the house. It's a smart psychological horror film that utilizes plenty of different techniques to scare the hell out of you, and is sure to be quite a pleasant surprise to horror fans. Another recent film that I really loved was It Follows. After a sexual encounter, a girl is followed by a supernatural being that can take the form of any person and cannot be seen by anyone who isn't a potential victim. What sounds like a terrible concept on paper actually proves to be pretty effective on the screen, giving you the creeps in countless scenes. Outside of a few issues I had with the third act, all in all I think it's arguably the best horror movie in the last decade, and I think the last great horror film before that to be released was The Descent. Do yourself a favor and watch the unrated director's cut. The ending is much better. But The Descent is about a group of women who go exploring a cave and everything goes horribly wrong. The suspense builds from the very first frame, making you claustrophobic and making you fear for their safety well before the monsters show up. And once they do, it is a bloodbath that is sure to please any looking for something on the gruesome side. Incredibly well done film that keeps your blood pumping the entire way through. Lastly, I'd like to talk about Suspiria. You've probably heard the name, maybe know a little bit about it. It's become a classic of the genre. It's the story of a girl who begins studying ballet at a private school that has a much more sinister purpose. With some great gore effects for the time and an unrelenting, chaotic score, the film keeps pushing you further and further into the uncomfortable. It moves at a slower pace than newer generations may be used to, but it's all for the betterment of the film's death scenes, of which there are few. Its use of color, set, and music create a tone and atmosphere unlike any I've ever seen, and its death scenes are some of the most horrifying to ever be put to the screen, and remains one of my all-time favorite horror movies. So that's my list. There are plenty of amazing films that didn't end up making the cut, so I'll leave a list of my honorable mentions in the description below if you're looking for a few more recommendations. Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments and let me know if there are any I've missed. I'm always looking for good movies to watch, and that is especially true for movies suited for Halloween. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.